Hi everyone. So we currently seem to have around 40 participants who've joined in. More are coming in. Rajiv, should we wait for a couple of minutes or yeah, yeah.
Hey folks, we will get started in just about a minute.
So we're recording this session, folks, for our community later. I'll share this across our communities. We're currently at 50 participants.
Okay, let's get started. I think there are a bunch more coming in, Anshul, so just maybe
Yeah, I'll
can
keep a
keep
track.
admitting them. And is the recording on?
Yeah, recording is on.
Okay, awesome. So, we'll keep it a bit informal. And today's session is obviously not to cover all the content that we can about, co-founder match. But the idea is that we really sort of give you a premise of what you can look forward to. And just a second, I'll just make sure that. So for us today, you can use this as a precursor to what is the kind of interactions, interventions that you will see from us if you're part of the co-founder club. So there are sort of four things I'll try to cover these first three things in the first 15 minutes. So we have at least half an hour for Q&A. The first is just general, what's the premise of finding co-founders from outside your network? A lot of people, a bunch of unicorn founders, some going live today, public, obviously are all been people who knew each other from a past relationship. So does this really work? Are there enough case studies, success stories of sort of people, raising money or being successful when they actually get to work with people that they never knew before? So that's sort of, I think, just to demystify some data there. The second is very specifically the offering that we launched 2 days back, which is the Antler Co-founder Club as part of the Before Day Zero community. The idea is that we've sort of learned a lot of stuff by running a bunch of cohorts over the last 3 years, and we have sort of transitioned a lot of those learnings into how we plan to run the Co-founder Club. We will share some early thoughts. It's still the first version of the Co-founder Club, so we'll obviously learn dynamically and sort of tweak and change like any other startup product. Third is a precursor to the kind of content that you're going to hear from us if you're part of the co-founder club. I'm not going to share all of it. That requires a much longer, deeper dive. But we will, just give you a bunch of sense of why some level of engineering this process is important. And the last half an hour, we'll just make sure that we are just taking questions. And if you have any questions already, which is sort of relevant to what I'm covering, please put that in the chat window. We've not run this as a seminar. We are running this as a regular Zoom call. So you can also come on video and sort of ask the question. Of course, Sanshul has to make you a host in that case. Or you can just put it on the chat window and I can just pick the question and answer if you're in a noisy place. So all of it is fine. So let me get started. So, so we did this analysis, right? And world over, actually, this data is even bigger. It's actually trending towards 40%, and there's a couple of books on this topic. In India, we did the analysis of the last 100 unicorns almost a year and a half back. Approximately 27 to 30% of them, funnily enough, have been done by two or three co-founders who didn't know each other or just knew each other for a very short period of time, maybe less than a year, right? And you'd be surprised at this data, actually, that in a country like India, where we are not so familiar with communication or our trust does not get built so easily, is it true that in a country like ours, we actually have that level of a data of people finding their co-founders without knowing someone? Yes, it is, right? And that's 30%. Even within the Antler cohorts, and now we have run 6 cohorts over the last 3 years, one every 6 months, of actually helping people come together. We have put together cohorts of anywhere from 60 to 90 people. I'm talking specifically to India. 60 to 90 people, and 40% of them have actually found a co-founder from within the cohort, or somewhere one network outside, right? Which essentially means that there's been hundreds of teams formed, but more importantly, 27 of them have been funded by Antler and 20 others have been funded by other people, right? Which means that 48, 49 have actually raised money from some VC, right? In many cases, Antler, but in some cases where maybe we didn't have full conviction, those companies that got formed in the residency went and raised money from someone else. And that's great, because at the end of the day, for us at Antler, it's extremely important that people find their co-founders, people go on to create some great things. Sometimes we will not be able to fund, but sometimes we will be able to. So now again, if you look at both the first data as well as the second data point, it is very clear that there is a lot of success, but engineered success, if people find their co-founder from outside their network. And there are so many examples, not just in India, but even outside globally, where if you just started up as a co-founder with someone that you knew, not someone that you didn't know, but someone who's just your best friend from college, best friend from work, best friend from childhood, whatever it is. I'm sure there are enough and more successful cases, but there's also enough and more failure cases where those friendships went for a toss. People just never worked together as co-founders, or in a setting like this, in a very high pressure environment like a startup. So a lot of relationships have been tested, a lot of relationships have broken. And again, there have been enough successful ones also. So I would say that if you have into this session coming in with a bit of a either a negative bias to finding a co-founder outside your network, or too strong a view that a relationship that I always have known for the last 5, 10 years is the only thing that works. We have enough data, enough proof points from India and from global over the last many years that there are enough and more success stories, just statistically, of people building great companies with people that they never knew for a long time or did not know for a while, right? So that's the first point. You can, have a bit of a leap of faith on this point if you came in as a bit of a pessimist, right? Now let's talk about why join the co-founder club, right? And maybe there are sort of 3 obvious benefits if you join the co-founder club, and 2 sort of benefits that we want to, maybe for a subset of the co-founder club, really offer it based on our ability to, because it's a physics, both of it involves physical time, both of it involves personal time from one of us. We just want to be cognizant of maybe a subset of that community. We will offer the 4th and the 5th. So what are those 3 things that we offer everyone? And again, when we say everyone, in the past, for even digital cohorts, we have had a 1:7 or a 1:8 sort of a curation rate. We pride ourselves about our curation. It is painful for a lot of people because we do this curation, but that's what makes it work for a lot of people, right? This curation. So the way we are doing it is, we will have anywhere from a 2 to 10%. We don't know where we will land, but we will have a very sharp curation. You have a form. If you go to beforeday0.in/co-founder club, you will have a form. There are enough and more details that you will have to fill about yourself, what you're looking at, what are you here for? And based on what you fill there and your LinkedIn profile, we are going to do some level of a sharp curation. Now, what do we look for? We look for some level of your ability to build in the past based on your LinkedIn profile. We look for some level of clarity on what is it that you're pursuing. And we will probably not even have a verbal conversation, but we are going to really do that curation based on the information that you fill. We expect maybe in the next 1 month, 1,000 people to sort of fill that. We already have almost 200 people who have filled it just in the last 2 days. And we expect that we will put together anywhere from 50 to 100 people at max. into a digital community. Now, what are we going to do within the digital community? We're going to have, of course, a lot of interactions within the digital community over the course of the next few months. Some of you may be in a job looking to quit. Some of you might have just about quit, but you will possibly be in that very fag end of job or just about quit and getting to some clarity, right? We'll also have a database of all of your profiles, which means that it makes it much easier for you to recover. And we very actively encourage for you to be part of other forums as well, because at the end of the day, this is a WhatsApp group, a WhatsApp community, which essentially means that please, feel free to, scout your office networks, scout your college network, scout the YC networks, scout any other network that you make sense, because for us, this whole process is a lot more than just providing a database or a curated list of similar people. So that's the first part, which is a bare bones essential. Second part, which is where some very unique aspects of Antler comes in, is a very heavily curated knowledge sort of sessions, as well as a bunch of stuff that we have, which is proprietary. Now, one of the sessions that I personally will do, which is a 1.5 hour session for this subset of people, is how do you go about finding this right co-founder? That's a 1.5 hour session. I'll go very deep into 6 aspects of finding a co-founder, everything from your personality. I'll touch upon some of that in the next slide. Nitin will do a session on why would you even go after VC? Why do you want to raise VC capital? How does VC operate? Not too many VCs tell you how VC itself operates, and why is it that very, very few of you need to raise VC money. So we will do these 2 sessions, most likely, sometime in the fag end of November, first week of December, purely virtual. The third thing that we'll do is where you are in that fag end of your ideation stage and clear as to what you want to pitch, we will have virtual pitchathons for at least the CEO candidates, the business folks, right? Because this forum will have both business, tech, operations, sort of second and third co-founders. We will enable you to sort of have a pitch. The best way to attract great co-founders is to have a really strong pitch, a strong pitch where you show passion, where you show clarity, where you show obsession. So we will enable these virtual pitchathons throughout the entire month of December based on when you're ready. Of course, some of you are ready, some of you might not be ready by December. Some of you, we expect that you being part of this community will be for a minimum period of around 6 months, for a max period of around 12 months. If you found someone, it could be even for 3 months, but it's a digital community. So there is no real involvement outside of being part of a WhatsApp group, if you look at it at the bare minimum. But we expect to churn this community once every 3 to 6 months, which essentially means that people who are either not becoming founders and or are not finding value, we will sort of every quarter add another 100 to 200 people who are relevant at that point in time, right? Which means that at any point in time, at the start, maybe we'll have 100 to 200 people, but you can expect the steady state digital forum to have around 600 to 700 people, and we'll slowly build towards that. And at any point in time, it will be a curated set of around 1,000 people. We don't want to exceed that number, just so that anyone who is in the digital community at a point in time is not left with 10,000 profiles. And that sort of is impossible to have any kind of sort of matches. The good part with the 1,000 profiles is we believe that that leads to usually around 20 to 30 filtered searches where, based on personality, based on complementary skills, based on the passion areas, you will find someone that is meaningfully someone that you want to pair up with, right? It's usually a 2 to 3% hit rate of cohort like that. Third, so these are the 3 things which will be part of everyone who's part of the co-founder club, which is the curated set of people amongst the people that are going to apply to the co-founder club over the course of this month. The last 2 are things that we want to experiment in the first week of December for a very small subset of people within this co-founder club. Now, how do we get to that filter? We don't know yet. We will see. But because our capacity is limited on that, we can only do this for 30 to 40 people. The first one that we will do is a proprietary personality test. Both of these, will be anchored by me. The proprietary personality test, I have now run it for 500 founders over the last 6 cohorts. So I have a lot of data where you fill a questionnaire in 15 minutes. As long as you are true to filling this questionnaire, you'll get a lot of value on your personality type and what's the right kind of co-founder that you should actually be looking at. So that's one exercise I'll do with 30 to 40 people, again, in the first week of December. Probably a subset, only because at this point in time, it's a very manual sort of a conversation. It's not yet AI enabled. It's not yet a tool. So which essentially means that it will be for a subset of people that we are able to work with. The second one, again, because it's a physical event, we're planning to do an offline mixer, at least one in December, one in the next quarter, in our office to meet people who are in a bit more of an advanced stage. uh, Fourth and fifth are things that we are aiming for in December 1st and second week, before sort of the entire industry goes into a holiday mood. But again, we want to keep that to a subset of the forum, and the criteria we want to sort of keep it to ourselves, just so that we are able to control the number of people that we can do it with. That's really the Co-Founder Club in its first iteration. We'll do a second iteration next quarter, sometime in March. Adding people to the Co-Founder digital community will be ongoing. It will not have first and last dates, but this exercise, next week I'm doing a session on employee to entrepreneur. So it's a 1 hour session where people, and that's going to be to a wider audience, not just people who are actively looking for co-founders. And those kind of interventions will keep happening every quarter from our side. The last slide before I take questions on any and every aspect, preferably everything related to your co-founder search. But if there are other questions also, I'll pick from the chat window. Why do you really need to engineer this process, right? A lot of people just go in with sort of, one eye closed, one eye open. They see whether the person has complementary skills. They maybe have a bunch of conversations and then they start working. But a lot of real conversations and a lot of things that can then pop up later is just subsumed and hidden under the carpet. And given we specifically as Indians are not really taught communication, not really taught how to sort of have confrontation, true of romantic relationships, true of co-founder relationships, that's sort of a recipe for disaster if you're looking at a 10-year journey with your co-founder, right? Because you come in with a bunch of ego, you come in with a bunch of certain presumptions on how the other person is going to be. The first 1 month of working together with that person is a bit of a moonlighting period, which essentially means that everyone is in the best of their behaviors, but you don't see the shit side of each other. You don't see the dark side of each other of sorts, right? I think the whole process of what we try and do is to really go look at yourself in your full bare bones and then talk with the other person very openly, so that you understand their bare bones, right? And unless this happens with at least 5-10 people over a 3-6 month period, you're probably going to end up with a very bad external co-founder, right? If you're just rushing into things, if you've worked with someone only for a week, 2 weeks, you just hit it off. That's great. You just spend that right amount of time and then make sure that you've sort of ironed around bunch of things. Now, what are those bunch of things? First one, extremely important to have vision and values alignment. And my session will go much deeper into what that means, what are the next level details of that. But it's extremely important, more than complementary skills, to have vision and values alignment with your co-founder. Second, where I go actually spend some level of detail in the session and way more level of detail in the individual one-on-ones for a subset of people, is to really understand your personality type, right? There are 4 core personality types as defined by Carl Jung, and you'll be surprised as to the effect that that personality type has on adults greater than 20 years old, which I assume is pretty much all of you. All of us have 2 predominant characteristics, and the kind of people that we are is defined by that, our working style, our communication style, what irritates us, what is our, how do we handle failure. So many things are designed and defined by our core personality types. That also means that there's a lot of, conversations and communication that you should have with the other person to understand their personality type and then align the co-founder relationship in a way that it works for both of you, not just one of you. A lot of people come in with the ego that I was the first founder, I'm the CEO, so things have to align to me. That never ends in a great co-founder relationship. You have to adjust to each other for sure. That's the second point. The third point is, in India, we are again, as I said, never taught communication. So co-founder chats over the course of a week, 2 weeks, 1 month just starts becoming status updates. Did you get this done on tech? Did you get this done on sales? But you just don't share what is going in your mind, what is bothering you about the other person, what the other person is doing well, which is actually working for you. So a lot of forethought in communication is something that we very actively encourage. Having sessions with each other, if you're 3 co-founders, with all 3 of you, talking about what you respect in each other, talking about what you think might be a pattern that you're seeing, which might hinder the other person's growth, because 75% of co-founder relationships don't last more than a 4 or 5 year period, right? which means that co-founders drop out. Not everyone is able to scale at the same pace at what the startup, requires. So you would rather have a lot of those conversations and make yourself comfortable with those conversations on day one. The last is, of course, how do you set equity? Just because someone came with the idea doesn't mean that they get 60/40, 70/30. What is the math or what is the science behind even setting equity and incentives? These are the things that I will cover in that session. As I said, the reason you would want to have an engineered process on this is to make sure that you talk about all this, you think through all this. You're not just entering it, with some absolute stars in your eyes that this is going to work beautifully and then have a lot of heartache or backlash. One of the biggest reasons why startups fail is co-founder breakup. We're doing our small little thing to make sure that that is not the reason why your startup fails. There are many other reasons why, which anyway, startups fail. So that's our endeavor with this whole initiative. I will pause here just so that we can now move to questions. I guess the chat window has enough questions, so maybe I can start with that. And folks, just feel free to, I'm going from top to bottom. So where would the recording be shared? What Anshul will do is to just reply to everyone who has registered on Luma with a link to the recording. So don't worry about if you came late or if you missed any pieces of it. We will just share a recording link. Does Antler fund deep tech startups in material science or biotech? Yes, we have actively looked. We have funded maybe one of it. We have funded almost 7 or 8 deep tech startups. Is a big focus area for us. So if you are building a deep tech startup, tough to find a co-founder in deep tech, that I can tell you. But please do apply to Antler. Today, Gen Z trusts AI with entertainment, but not with money. What do you look for in founders' products to bridge this psychological trust gap, especially before regulatory trust arrivals? Actually, the AI question, I'm going to sort of reframe it to say that in this AI era, do you even really need a co-founder? Is a very fair question, by the way, right? We get asked this question. Apparently, there's a huge trend now to actually start companies solo because you have AI that codes for you. You have AI that does far more than just coding for you. And it's a very fair question, by the way, right? If you have the confidence, if you have the experience, maybe today, in the next 5 years, if you're building a startup, is the era where maybe you don't even need a co-founder. See, the thing with a co-founder is actually way more than just the technical skill. It's way more than the complementary skill. AI will scale up to be an emotional companion, as this question itself points out. Uh, it is it is a very lonely journey any which way, and 93% of startups that get created will fail. 93%. 7% goes somewhere, and maybe 1% goes becomes a $500 million or $1 billion company. When failure is written so large on day one statistically, right? Why would you want to bet against the stats is the biggest question. So your co-founder, your ideal co-founder acts as a huge trust companion, your source of energy when you are down and vice versa. You're sort of really sharing all of your deep insecurities as well as irritations and frustrations. Of course, with any other relationship, whether that's romantic or otherwise, it also comes with its own sort of, I would say, challenges, right? You have to always get one more person apprised of what's going on in your head. You have to, for all the key strategic decisions, get one more or two more people's okays, or at least get to discussions with them before you take a decision. All of that is the flip side to it. So I don't have, honestly, the Gen Z and ways Gen Z work, as well as whether AI can do the job of a co-founder. It's too hard for me to say that today. But a co-founder and the right co-founder can actually add a lot of value, way more than just complementary functional skill sets, but a lot of emotional cushion to building the startup and reducing the chance of failure. Are there any principles or patterns in when co-founders without history could work well with each other? Actually, that's a great question. I think the patterns that we have seen, let me share a couple of them. One is there is a lot of respect very early on. As Indians, again, we find it very hard to trust and respect, especially a particular personality type, which is the most prevalent founder personality type in India. That personality type inherently has the challenge of trusting without data. And when you have trust, so you have to sort of make a leap of faith to trust without data. And if anything happens counter to that, then you should be okay with breaking the trust and having disappointment. So you start with respect, you start with trusting the other, you start with not trying to prove one-upmanship, you start by giving before you receive. Is the most phenomenal way of building a great co-founder relationship with someone you don't know. Now, of course, it is tougher than, it's easier said than done. In terms of in a conversation with a VC, the two of you have just sort of found each other last month. You started working with each other, that you're now letting the other person speak, even though you have a difference of opinion, you have a different point of view, because the two of you never discussed that answer to that question. You don't interject, you don't cut in that meeting. You go and say, hey, I have a different point of view. Is one person always talking answers? The other person is not. Then also it's not a great thing. So I would say that enough trust, respect to make sure that each of you are not talking over each other. Each of you is holding each other's back in the initial 1 month does wonders to build confidence. So even if not two people will do this at the same pace at the same time, one person will always be more giving at the start. Maybe the other person will take some time to adjust to that. But that has worked wonders in co-founder relationships, especially with people that don't know each other. Instead of one coming as a very strong personality, the other coming as a sort of a weak personality, those kind of co-founder relationships just don't create something great. So I know you have raised your hand. Why don't you type the question again, and I'll try and answer. So let me just go through the rest of it. For someone, I guess Anshul has tried answering. For someone who's been in the community, Anjali's question, for 6 months but haven't become co-founders yet, maybe because idea is still shaping up, will you simply churn them out or have a conversation with them before churning them out of the cohort? We honestly, Anjali, to be honest, we haven't yet figured out what the churn thing is, because this is the first time we are doing it as part of a community. Earlier, all the 6 versions we have run it as part of cohorts. So it was a very high selection rate. You had to leave your job. You had to come be part of it physically for the first 1 month of a 3 month thing. We had way more restrictions earlier. The restrictions have reduced. We want to keep the curation similar so that the quality of the people is similar or better. Uh, and we want to make sure that there is value. If someone finds, let's say, you in the forum and you're still another 6 months away from becoming a founder, then after a point, it just becomes difficult to justify value, which is why we honestly haven't finalized the churn policy. We'll figure it out with time. Today, for people applying and or being part of the community, you don't have to worry about anything on the churn thing for now. As most of the things are digital, how are you ensuring better ways folks can try working with each other and figure out who they can work with? So one of the points I very deliberately did not mention is, and we're trying to figure out how to do this better, is we want to do work sprints which are offline, where two people will actually meet in the IRL world or on Zoom, work with each other over a project, and give us feedback on how that thing worked, what you liked about the person, what you didn't like about the person. We want to roll this out in a more formal way in version 2 in the next quarter of the co-founder club, right? So which means that we will have some tools for it. We will not formally do it in the version 1 because it involves some additional tools which we'll have to sort of integrate with and stuff. We want to start version 1 with just a database where you just find each other's contacts, find each other's information, easy search, easy retrieval, all of that stuff. We just want to start with that. So work sprints are usually the best way beyond all the things digital and all the content sessions. And of course, we are running a mixer. We'll do the personality thing. The mixer is just one offline event. We just want to encourage this physical meeting and start tracking your feedback from it. But that will happen only next quarter. We will figure out what we do this quarter to make sure that at least the physical meeting happens. Hope that answered your question, Pratmesh. A slightly off-topic question. Do we have the dates for the next cohort of the Antler residency? Could not find it on the website. There's a question from Jasdev. We will certainly have a residency for teams in January for sure. Now, whether that's going to be again AI oriented or it's going to be across different streams, we don't know yet. We are in the fag end of investments from Fund 1, which means that we have another 13, 14 investments to go from Fund 1, which means that maybe we run only one more AI residency between Jan and March. We're still figuring things out. I think the clarity will emerge by December 15th. You should hear from us by the end of December on that. Hi Rajiv, there's a question from Rajiv, namesake, with a spelling mistake. Hi Rajiv, I had applied to Antler in July 2025 but wasn't selected. The feedback was that I applied as an individual, not as a team. At that time, I had potential co-founder. We were in a structured trial phase to test our working dynamics before finalizing equity. I'd already started the company, built the first version, formed the team, achieved early traction and revenue before bringing him on board. We're now formalized on the partnership and are working together full time. Awesome, Rajiv. I think you should just ping us. You could ping any of us. You could ping me, rajiv at antler.co. If you are advanced enough that we can now look at you, please do ping rajiv at antler.co. I will pass it to the relevant team based on your idea. Rahul Arora, if somebody qualifies to be a founding team member but not a co-founder, how would we deal with such a situation? So this is one of the most oft-repeated questions that we have. What is the difference between a co-founder and a co-founding team member? What is the equity difference? How do you even think whether someone is right for A versus B? Not a great answer I can give you in a 2 minute window. This is one of the things that I do cover in my session in the more detailed 1.5 hour session. Um, I think I think it's fair, right? That they don't have either the risk quotient or you don't see their capability at this point in time to be at the level where you bring them into strategic discussions and co-founder level conversations. You should have at least a solid two, three other co-founding team members also. And I think it is very clear. Seniority is one obvious difference that might happen. But more than seniority, I think the risk quotient in terms of what they're looking for in terms of as a salary or where you feel their contribution is. Maybe there are three or four, especially if you're a solo founder, maybe you're choosing to operate with three, four founding team members, not a co-founder. I think the equity is going to be different. Their seat in the table in terms of strategy is going to be different. Uh, and by essence, sort of the way you interact with them might be slightly different. But for all other reasons and practical purposes, co-founding team members act almost very similar to co-founders in terms of the time they spend in the start, in terms of just the kind of camaraderie you develop. So maybe Rahul, if there are more specific questions on that, please feel free to post. I'll come back to it. Can we jump co-founders during the process? The reason we moved this whole activity from running it as part of a cohort to running it as part of a community is actually because we believe that in the first exploration phase, it is a wrong incentive to say that in 3 months, find a co-founder, we will also invest in you. We've seen in the past that people have had this wrong incentive to come pitch to us in IC. So show a co-founder in 3 months, but really the relationship is not strong enough. It breaks very soon after. The person is not really does not want to be a founder, one of the two. So it leads to all sorts of wrong incentives. So the real reason why we put it into the community in a slightly less time intensive activity, a more parallel activity, is because we feel that it takes 6 months to probably get to the right co-founder from outside of your network. In that 6 month process, you probably have done work sprints with at least three, four different people. It's not the first person that lands up that you start working with who's going to become the right co-founder. You've at least seen three, four people. You've seen the person in some good light and in bad light. You've had at least a couple of beers or coffees as your preferences. And you've talked everything from your political preferences to your favorite EPL or IPL team to everything under the sun that's possible, right? What is your biggest fears? We have a 60 question, very intense self-reflection exercise, which also we share as part of the whole session, which we do. And and that's something that we actually, there's a lot of thought into it, right? So the whole jumping co-founders during the process is actually part of it's almost like the dating process, right? It's very, very few people who find the their life partner in the first person they date. There's a reason why you're supposed to explore. It's the same for your co-founder too, especially from outside your network. So we do encourage that actively, actually. Hi Raj. And the other side to that is just don't be non-committal and just be casual dating for 6 years, 5 years. Fine, that's great for you. If that's what you want on the romantic side. But on the co-founder side, that's not going to build a great startup, right? So you should sort of move to the what I call the explore, commit, experience phase. Get to the commit phase, get to the experience phase after 6 months. And don't sort of keep, there's no one right co-founder that's going to be the magical person who's going to be complementary in skills and personality, and you're getting along with everything, and everything is, there's no one such human that exists on this earth. Um, Haraji wanted to check if India residency program has been put on hold. No, we actually ran the AI residency between July and September. We made 6 investment decisions. Maybe a seventh one might happen out of 20 odd teams that we saw. So we will do the next residency between Jan and March of 2026, aiming to look at 15 to 20 teams and invest in 7 to 8. So whether that's AI only or not is a call that we will take in just a bit. Um, when will the Antler residency start for the next cohort? So a lot of the questions are about the Antler residency, which I answered. Therapist as a co-founder, absolutely. Therapist, sometimes mentor, sometimes coach, sometimes everything under the sun actually, is who your co-founder is or your co-founders are. Does Antler help in finding co-founders? I'm looking for a co-founder in tech. So I think the one other difference we are doing while moving this from a cohort activity in the last 6 cohorts and 3 years that we have done it in India to what we are doing it starting literally last 2 days is to be sort of a guiding light of sorts, right? Not be your active helper, because we have seen that the best co-founders as well as the people who have formed the longest term relationships with people outside of their network are people who put the effort. They put the effort, they go to a wide set of forums. They're not looking at us to spoon feed them as to, oh, you go talk to A person B and stuff. The agency comes from the founder. The willingness and the want to go build that relationship comes from the founder. And again, based on our learning, it has sort of been negative when we have done too much of that work for on behalf of the founder and tried to match make like Sima auntie. I think that leads to wrong tendencies and wrong sort of relationships, and we want to avoid that. So we will look at us as sort of your AI companion of sorts. That's our end goal with this whole product, that we become an AI companion of sorts, but that's the role we will play. Early access to the best founders. Could you elaborate, please? Are these obligations for match co-founding teams? There is no, one of the biggest things, which again, that's the way we had to operate because it was an investment product. We had to sort of ask for exclusivity from each of you. There are no contracts you sign. The first conversation you will have is when we want to sort of do a physical engagement. So we are trying to actually make this process completely digital, where we don't even sort of take too much of your time. Certainly no contracts, no obligations for the co-founder club. If you're 6 months away from resigning, some very specific people, even 1 year away from resigning, no problem. Please apply. We will figure out. If you're a bit too early, we will, maybe make that mention also and maybe say that, hey, after this phase, come to us. But please do apply because it's really no obligations from your side. Um, Rajesh, from your experience, what distinguishes founder pairs that go on to build great companies from those that don't, especially in the first 90 days of working together? And I'll assume that this is specifically for people that didn't know each other before the co-founder relationship. I think crazy level of bonding and communication beyond work is something that I've seen work really well, which is they're staying with each other, they're taking the same, they're just not seeing each other as just two professional folks, especially in the first 90 days, right? They are together all the time, they are in the office till late, they are, customer conversations, they are together, they're just doing a lot of things together. In the first 90 days, it makes a lot of sense because that there is not, of course, maybe someone is better with investors, maybe someone is better with tech. Obviously, there are some lines that you can draw, but they're just together a lot of the time. They talk anything and everything under the sun, almost like, the date that you want to impress in the first date, you just utter every shit possible about yourself, right? You have to start doing that with your co-founder in the early days. And I think it's just a function of the amount of time you spend, your waking time you spend with that person. A lot of AI advice tools are being built globally. What signals tell your founder is solving a uniquely India problem, not reskinning a Silicon Valley thesis with Hindi fonts? This is an existential question for VCs. So, and I think there's just a lot of AI software things. The more foundational thing is not just reskinning a Silicon Valley thesis. What is stopping the next version of ChatGPT to be just better at what you're building, right? As a companion, I think that's the bigger question we ask ourselves. It's less about someone just reskinning. I think that a cursory check using the same AI tool will tell you. But I think what is harder to predict is what really is the differentiation in terms of either the core workflow or something unique to the Indian audience that you are building. And that is actually is taking a lot of time to figure out. Or that one more person with the same idea is not going to just come and out execute you or raise more capital and win the market. When having difference of opinion, most of the time with the co-founder can lead to split where actually it could be a asset. Oh yeah, absolutely. Two co-founders, if they're saying the same thing, have consensus on everything, are probably the bad co-founders. It's very simple. Two smart people need to have difference of opinion on something, right? Otherwise, if you're too alike, then the startup you build might not be the most successful. Some level of disagreement, some level of differences of opinion, even in the early days, is extremely important. The challenge in India and the Indian education system is it does not prioritize communication and more upfront communication, on the face communication. Either that means that we act as jerks or we just don't communicate at all. These are the two extremes that most of us follow, neither of which is good. So I think a lot of that, as long as you're able to state it, as long as the other person hears it, they have factored that in. Maybe they have a different point of view. Maybe as a startup, you need to prioritize. You need to go with what is not your opinion, let's say. You need to have the maturity to be able to do that. Now, of course, it can't always be the case that one person's opinion is discarded, only one person's opinion is right, or vice versa. That is sort of what leads to demotivation. But I think as long as you can encourage a culture in the first 90 days specifically, that you're at least being able to share all of these with each other and make sure that you are able to do that in a forum where there is respect in terms of communication, not being dismissive, not being you don't know this, I know this better, blah blah blah. I think it'll go a long way in building that sort of trust. Let me speed up given there's 16 minutes left and seems the questions have increased. How do we get a tech co-founder based on just an idea? I have a legal tech which I'm convinced about. How do I convince a non-tech guy to believe in the idea? Tech co-founders are a rare commodity. The smart tech co-founders are an even rare commodity. So that's almost like I think obviously AI has helped, Lovable and Emergent and all these have helped to get to some crude prototypes. But of course, getting a great tech co-founder means that you have to really sell your vision. Imagine you as a CEO, if the question you're asking is you're the business founder or you're the CEO in this whole mix of things. The reason why we push for clarity on what you do, it is much easier to sell one idea in depth rather than sell three ideas, which means that you just have a higher probability of finding a great co-founder when you're clearer of what idea you're going after. There are a set of people who are very clear of their co-founder before their idea. That usually happens with people that you don't know or you already know in the past. It hardly happens with people that you don't know in the past. So it's someone, I mean, we know the Zetwork founders, and I think Srinath and Amrit were very clear that they were going to start something. Then the idea of Zetwork came, but they knew each other from IIT Madras and ITC for a while. So starting with someone like that, that's great, and that's a great way to start companies too. There's already a lot of trust, and then you can go towards an area of passion. But with people that you don't already know, you probably have a much, much higher chance. And I would add this as one more sort of hack or trick. You have a much higher chance of convincing someone when you're passionately talking about a problem statement, a space, something you want to solve, rather than saying or telling them that I have this idea, oh, I have this idea also, and this idea also. You're not going to convince them. You're not going to come out strong to them. So try, if possible, to get to conviction in one idea or massive in-depth obsession in one idea. You just will come out better to a tech co-founder. Tech co-founders love scale. Tech co-founders love tech challenges. So if you have a great business idea, but it's not translating to a great tech idea or a tech challenge, again, you will find it harder to convince a strong tech person. So make it exciting for them. Make it exciting. Maybe someone wants innovative ideas. Maybe someone wants interesting AI implementation. Maybe someone wants scale. Maybe someone wants something interesting tech for sure. Try to convince them, talk their language. One more question from Anjali, which seems to have been answered. November 26th. Yeah, we're trying to sort of finalize all of the co-founder club applications by November 26th, plus minus 3-4 days. So max by November end. Could you please elaborate on the selection criteria for the proprietary personality test and offline mixers? Parita, I wish I knew the answer to this. I myself don't know it today. So based on the number of people that get added to the community, we will try and figure out. Maybe it might be as simplistic as just location, someone in Bangalore. Maybe it is just based on how soon you're ready to start up or the clarity of your idea. I wish I knew the answer to it. I don't know today. But we will work with in a way that if you're not able to roll it out for everyone at the start, we'll try to roll it out for everyone in the community over a 2-3 month period. Adriana has a bunch of questions. What's Antler's current investment focus in India, specific sectors? We are sector agnostic. I'm going to keep it for all the non-co-founder questions. I'll keep it really quick. We're sector agnostic. We have a reasonable split across 25% in consumer. We have 5 in Web3, 30% in fintech, mobility, India-based B2B, 10% in deep tech, 35% in SaaS. I think all of that adds up to 100. We've done 107 investments, by the way. We are now seeing a lot more next level traction. We have almost 30 of them which have raised a seed. We have around 5 of them which have raised a Series A, one of which has raised a Series B out of the 107 investments. But still, a lot of them are in the last 2 years, actually in the last 18 months. So a lot of them are still new. A lot of them are still launching their MVP. So a lot of them will come for seed raise sometime soon. I noticed you already backed a startup similar to mine. Would Antler double down on a category or one is enough? This is a very valid question. If the startup we backed is in the last 6 months, we actively discourage the founder who's talking to us to share any more details with us. So sometimes from the email and the application, we don't know. When we start talking to the founder, then we realize, oh shit, this is very similar to an idea that we just funded. Then we tell the founder in the first conversation. So don't worry about that. If it is too close, maybe don't apply. That's very fair. If it is somewhere orthogonal, a distant cousin kind of a stuff, you can talk to us. If we know that that startup is also going to get into that area, we'll again tell you. You can even send a deck to us. You can rest assured we have highest quotient on ethics. We will never share anything, even with a well-funded, a startup which we have been backing for the last 9 months. If you happen to send a deck to us, which is very similar, we will never share that with that startup, right? It doesn't matter that we have never talked to you and we have the other startup for 9 months. So we are very proactive in not having competing startups. But if the startup we funded is 2 years back, right, and maybe it's sort of in a limbo or it has raised the next round, then we do actively look at similar ideas too. So if that startup is at least maybe a year and a half, two back, please feel free to apply to us. If we for some other reason decide to not do, we will tell you that in the conversation. Do you plan to build the IRL community with regular meetups or local chapters? That's the idea. We want to get to that. We don't want to commit to that before April of next year, more internal bandwidth reasons. We do have plans to have local chapters, at least in the top 6 cities. Obviously, Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, NCR, Bombay, but also Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune. But we want to get to that point. Tried working with a couple of co-founders, primarily looking to be a CEO, but are a little introvert in nature. Will that work? I think Rahul is trying to help with his viewpoints. What domain are they building? Introverted CEOs. Well, I think it's hard to just dismiss summarily, an introverted or an extroverted. I think even introverted CEOs introverts are also absolutely fine in going in depth with maybe 3 people or 5 people in a closed door session, not in an open forum. They suck at going to a wide networking forum and talking and stuff, right? But they have so much depth that they could just go very great one-on-one. So I think an introverted is tough to sort of, paint as good or bad. I think the CEO skills, if I just take a step back, you have to be a great storyteller somewhere. It doesn't matter whether it's the wide community of 100 people like this or one-on-one. You have to be a great storyteller. Otherwise, you're going to suck as a CEO trying to raise money, trying to get talent, all of that stuff. You're going to have to show some level of depth of the customer, depth of your space, talk about obsessively what you're trying to build, right? Because what you're trying to build might change over time, might fail, all that stuff. But if you don't have that obsession about that space, it's hard to attract people to you, right? That is a great CEO. 3, some level of institution building skill set of sorts, which means as a CEO, you're going to probably always be managing multiple different stakeholders, or find a good, strong COO who will do that for you, or a good co-founder who will do that for you. So I don't have a direct answer. great CEO or not if they're introvert. I think introverts can make great CEOs if they cover for some of these, even in small communities, and then build their confidence and build their skill sets over time. Arjun Reddy, how to get sales for B2B startups, like a system we have seen to get easily connected, get customers for B2B? I anyway don't have a 1 minute answer for you. So there are sessions that we have run just to answer this question. So I'm going to pass this. Are there certain founder types Antler tends to start with, like domain experts, product builders, etc., when you pick that first founder before matching? Hmm. Yeah, we do like people who come with some level of proven building experience. You could be a college founder who has built something. You could be in a startup, you could be in a Sunicorn or a unicorn, but you have 1 or 2 or 3 years at least of building something consistently over time, right? You have done something, either a 0 to 1, 1 to 10. We do like to see those profiles. But having said that, if you've never been in a startup, maybe you were building an SME, you were just didn't have access to the startup ecosystem. You're building it in Jodhpur, Surat, whatever it is, right? Absolutely feel free to apply, because we also look for all these uh, just inherently entrepreneurial people who may not have any sort of background in the startup ecosystem, but just show a lot of obsession and passion in many other ways. So yes, we have tended to pick more of the people who have building experience, but we have enough founders that we have funded who have no such experience also. Not to be dramatic, but what's in it for Antler, the co-founder club? It's a very good question. We At the end of the day, we want to work with the best founders. Our core product is, we are an investor. We invest in great founders or people who will become great founders that will give returns to the people that we raise money from. And we do scout via multiple channels, right? For example, one of the things that we do is Next 100, which is a report of 100 great ideas from the ecosystem. We have done 2 versions of it. What's in it for Antler? Is it just pure marketing material? No, it's not. We do love the joy of ideas. We do love the joy of hearing those ideas from those people and putting it out there, because in a small way, maybe someone gets inspiration from that and starts up. Maybe that someone never comes to Antler, and I'm sure there are such examples. But in some way, indirectly, maybe that someone comes to Antler because they saw that idea in some Antler community content piece, and then talks to us, and then realizes that, hey, maybe we could also fund him or her. It is the same with the co-founder club. It's the same with BDs before day zero. You're in our community. Maybe you found some little value. You found your co-founder through us. You never bothered to tell us that you're raising money. You just found your co-founder through us, and you went on to create a great company. And in your IPO speech, you came and thanked Antler. We never funded you, but you still thank us. We obviously get a kick out of it. But of course, I would love it if we could fund you also. So that's why we do it. But at the end of the day, for us, obviously, our legacy as Antler is all of these different small pieces that we contribute to the ecosystem. We are honestly as happy about the 21 that we didn't fund and have gone on to some level as we are about the 27 we funded, right? Because we were a small part to their creation and going on to build something. So that's the way we would look at it. So yeah, maybe my answer was dramatic. Your question was not. Would love to get your views. Age compatibility of co-founders. It's a great question. Usually, we feel that age compatibility plus minus 3-4 years is the ballpark that people want to work with. There is some level of sort of seniority and or ageism that sets in one way or the other. Either one is too young, one is too old, vice versa. Same, one is too old, one is too young. There is that level of sort of seniority. So we have seen, quote unquote, for a variety of not just work professional reasons, respect reasons, um, maybe personality or personal reasons. It should not be that one talks about dial-up and one talks about mobile, right? So, there are a variety of reasons why I think that's the case. So, we have seen the more successful ones in a very narrow age range of 3-4 years with each other. Off topic, dates for the next cohort. We talked about it January. What happens if you realize after 3-6 months you don't gel well as co-founders? Continue with the idea how to proceed then. This is one of the hardest things, and this happens a lot, by the way, that the co-founder relationship looks sweet for 3-6 months, after which the cracks come. Our whole idea, our whole process is to make sure that you don't have to wait 3, 6 months for those cracks to appear. It appears in the 3 months rather than 6 months later, where you're well into developing, you now want to go for a fundraise, blah, blah, blah. We're trying our best to get it out in the first 3 months, but this happens a lot. Um, the idea and the hope in that case is that one of you who has played or is more passionate about the problem statements at least continues and goes builds it with someone else, and the other person has the maturity to let that happen, not ask for too much of an equity. The first person has some grace and gives some level of equity, some small equity, just so that that's a amicable thing and stuff. If someone wants to anyway leave in 6 months, co-founder relationship breaking in terms of communication, of course, we have seen enough and more of those cases. But one wants to leave because they're not as excited and stuff. That is absolutely fair and fine. It's better that person leaves than later. This happens a lot. You have to be ready for it. I think the flip side of finding co-founders from outside your network is that all of these are possible outcomes, and you just have to be ready. When you go enter the dating arena, you're not like, you enter it in 20s just so that maybe you get married by 30s. You have a good 5-10 year window that you've experienced and you've broken and you've learned about yourself and the shitty side of you, shitty side of other people, blah, blah, blah. You have to allow for at least 6 to 12 months. The reason we believe it's a better community offering and not a cohort offering is exactly that reason. We believe it takes 6 to 12 months to get through all of this, understand yourself better. That's where a lot of people don't understand themselves better. They think they understand themselves better. Through the first 1 month, all the sort of layers come off. And that itself takes a long time to assimilate and oh shit, I am so shit on so many things in so many ways. Takes a lot of an ego hit. And that's actually takes the right amount of time to settle in. Someone wants to create a service and a product where they don't have a technical background. Does finding a co-founder who has a technical background really matter, or both survive without technical background? Two co-founders in the current AI era can actually survive without a technical co-founder. It is possible, actually. But you just have to throw yourself at one of you has to throw yourself at learning, using some of these tools, becoming super adept at it, showing such traction that you excite a very strong co-founding team of engineers. So not a tech co-founder. That's in the new era, absolutely okay, actually. Founding team member, I specifically want to understand the compensation format for a founding team member, salary versus equity. Co-founders are roundabout equal, let's say 50-50 or 60-40 at best. Extreme 66-33 because that's already 1:2. Founding team members come in anywhere from 2 to 5%. It's single digit numbers of equity. All of it vests over a 4-5 year period. So if someone doesn't perform, and if someone really performs, you can also increase that, get it closer to a 10% number over a 3-4 year period. Someone really scales up and lifts weight more than anyone else, you can also keep upgrading it. That's salary, usually matching salary of what they were getting before or 20% lesser. For co-founders, it's probably 50-70% lesser. That's the way I would say it instead of a particular number. Early stage funded, co-founders themselves take not more than 20 lakhs if it's pre-seed funded per year. If they're made enough money, somewhere maybe 12 lakhs, 24 lakhs otherwise. If they're able to directionally raise a larger pre-seed round, and they have a lot of constraints of loans and stuff, we have seen it per year go up to 30 lakhs. Founding team members is completely a function of, again, you probably have raised anywhere from 2 to 4 crores. So salary of the first 5 people cannot be more than maybe 1.5 crore or so that you have enough money for, marketing or anything else that you need to do. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to just extend this by 5 minutes and try to cover a bunch of the other questions. For all those that we don't cover today, folks, I will do next Wednesday, 5 to 6, an employee to entrepreneur thing. For anyone who's sort of looking for, are they even ready to make the shift? You should come for that session. You can ask me some of the questions then. That also usually overruns. If you're not able to answer, just apply. Okay. In dating, a great test for relationship is considered when the partners face at least one major rock bottom together. How to simulate this while finding co-founders? It's a great question. I actually haven't thought about this. Prathamesh, there's a question that I will ask Anshul to take your contact and maybe brainstorm and come back to you. I don't have an answer. Um, I have two questions. We're building something novel in which a lot of R&D is required. We're already halfway with that. Should be able to come up with a market next 3 to 4 months. As I'm solo, adds complementary skills as well, share the same vision. True, for someone who's already built a product, see, the later you are in the stage, the tougher it is to excite a co-founder. Because co-founders come for naming the company also. They come for what direction, which customer to go after. So the earlier you are in your process, the better it is to excite a co-founder, right? Because they feel part of everything from day one. Now you've built a product, you've named your company, I'm not saying there are great co-founders that have happened even at that stage. I'm going to leave everyone who has been branded a co-founder after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. All that is a whole load of crap in my books. You're acting like a co-founder, so you become a co-founder. Great motivation for someone senior, but that's a load of nonsense. So I think unless it's a hard pivot or something like that. So I think it's tougher, right? If you have the product already, everything is set, you just want to launch it and you need someone technical, you should evaluate whether you can do with a co-founding team, right, at that stage, rather than a co-founder, while a co-founder might add credibility. Or just excite and just spend a lot of time in the back end working with them, let them be a consultant, let them be freelance working with you, let them show that passion, then get them in. That's a better co-founder in that case, because it's not just paper. You already have something to show. So someone should be excited by what you've done in parallel. Okay, Solo Tech Founder, connect with you all. Great. Solo Tech Founders who are on the call, please do apply. We need a lot of you. We need a lot of you to be on the forum. It's one of the biggest asks of people in the forum. So we would, and we also understand, the way we have seen is tech founders or potential tech founders also take longer time to make the call, right? Because they are a bit more fluid with their ideas, they're a bit more fluid with the space. They also are probably earning a lot of money in the company they are in right now. So it's not easy to take that level of a salary jump. So very smart tech people, the smarter and the more senior they are, actually find it very hard to become founders. So this is truth of life. We have seen this in the past in our cohorts. So do come as part of the cohort, and hopefully you get excited by someone in the cohort. Um, can I have your email? Like to discuss more? I anyway will forward the email to someone who's way better at assessing that idea than me, which is what we have the team for. You can email me, Rajiv at antler.co, Rajib at antler.co. But most likely someone smarter than me is going to talk to you. Hey, folks, would love to connect with you all. Yes, please apply. Thank you. Okay, I think we are at the fag end of questions. Anshul, am I missing any sort of particular?
Yeah, just one question, Rajiv, which I think is worth addressing. Any absolute red flags
Oh,
to judge a co-founder relationship, and is there a North Star to judge one? That's the last one I would take. Yeah.
that's a great question, actually. Um, the absolute North Star, giving before receiving, is the absolute North Star, right? Trusting before you have shown something, I think is the absolute North Star, right? Because that essentially means that they generally can give room for failures, for communication, for things. Not everyone is wired that way. Unfortunately, more people are receiving before giving. That's the way the trust equation builds, and it's a direct function of the personality type of a lot of great founders in the country. So that's certainly one way. The other way is sort of um, just not operating out of entitlement, coming at it from very high curiosity, very high listening skills, uh, not using position of power or experience. Because when you're starting something afresh, you're back to square one. It doesn't matter you're a director in Grow or you're a senior director in Flipkart, all that goes to dust. Okay. All that is useful because you'll be able to attract better talent, you'll be able to attract better investors, you'll be able to show that you're obsessed about some problem statement. But if the person is using entitlement and or seniority and or years of experience and not showing humility and curiosity, it's some of those cases still end up working, but it's probably not something that you're going to enjoy. And or the person is not listening to ideas, it's not something that you're going to enjoy. So I would say that's the red flag. The North Star is giving before receiving. Okay, folks, I know we are 5 minutes over time. Thank you for your time today. We have the recording that Anshul will send to all the people who have registered on Luma. We'll do a slightly different version next Wednesday, 5 to 6, employee to entrepreneur. So if you have any questions left, not answered, please come for that. Good evening and bye.
Thank you, everyone. Please register for our Luma event. You'll find it on our Luma calendar. I'm also dropping the link here. Great to have you folks. I've also dropped my email and Rajiv's email, of course, is rajiv@antler.co. Please write into us. Happy to sort of jam with you. We will connect you with the right people internally, right? We have teams who look at multiple different ideas on pods and are experts in those domains. Hence, they will be the best people to understand what you're building much better. Thank you so much for joining us. Cheers.